Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Laura Prada from the Telesur Studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. And we begin in El Salvador, where the counting of votes of the presidential election continues. According to numbers of the electoral body, the candidate Nayib Bukele for the party Ghana leads the first place with 53.79% of the votes. In the second place, the candidate of the Nationalist Republican Alliance Party Arena, Carlos Callejas, is located with 31.62% of the votes. Followed in the third position by Hugo Martinez from the Farabundo Martí for the National Liberation, FMLN, with 13.77% of the votes. And finally, the candidate Joshua Alvarado with 0.81% of the votes. And the polling stations already closed, and the 90% of the ballots continue to be counted as the country held this Sunday, 3rd of February, its presidential elections. Around 5 million people were registered to vote at more than 1,500 election centers. Several international organizations, such as the European Union and the Organization of American States, will want to monitor the election through observatory missions. This is the 6th time Salvadorians have voted in elections since the country returned to democracy in 1992 after 12 years of civil war.
I am voting because it is a duty as well as a right. We have to elect our new president. I think they are going to change many things in this country.
We, the Organization of American States, have accompanied different elections in El Salvador 16 times. We have groups all over the country, made up of specialists. What we have seen is that polling stations were opened correctly and on time. We hope the day continues as normal and that many people participate.
And police officers in charge of polling station security also cast their ballots. This after the Salvadorian Supreme Electoral Court ruled that the officers could exercise their franchise. It did so by releasing an official statement after the National Police Director asked the court to guarantee the officers' vote. The controversy arose when the court resolved that only 10 police members of each group could vote.
The National Police Director and even the Justice Minister managed to achieve the goal of letting police members to cast their ballots. Human rights organisations also supported us. Finally, the Supreme Electoral Court allowed the police assigned to polling stations to vote. We are satisfied because we achieved our right to vote.
On Saturday, tens of thousands of people marched in Venezuela's capital, Caracas, and throughout the country in celebration of the 20 years since the Bolivarian Revolution came to power. Social movements gathered in the heart of this capital city to laud the work, struggles, and achievements of the last 2 decades of revolution which began under Hugo Chávez. President Nicolás Maduro received a warm welcome as he arrived to the historic Bolívar Avenue. Addressing the crowd, Maduro proposed holding early elections for the National Assembly.
You know the crisis that the National Assembly has. The bourgeois legislative power, the Constituent Assembly, has in its agenda the constitutional, historical and political evaluation to call parliamentary elections this year. I agree that we should re-legitimize the country's legislative power and that we hold free elections with guarantees that the people decide on a new National Assembly.
And Maduro also said he has been open to dialogue, be it with opposition leader Juan Guaidó or with the U.S. President Donald Trump, although both of them have never agreed.
The government of the empire led by Donald Trump, with the macabre plan tailored by Donald Trump against Venezuela, has announced that they are against dialogue, and if the government of the state is against dialogues, they favor what? They favor coup d'etat that they have prepared, finance and direct from the military intervention against Venezuela, from the war. I tell you, Donald Trump, you have been fooled. You have been completely fooled. John Bolton, Mike Pence, and Mike Pompeo. They are three war falcons that are obsessed with Venezuela. And you have been fooled. You who believe you are the emperor of the world believe that Venezuela is going to surrender and obey your orders. Know that Venezuela will not surrender. Venezuela continues forward. Venezuela is rebel. Venezuela is free.
And people gathered to celebrate the revolution, assured that they want to work together with the government for the peace of their country.
We are people of peace, we are people of harmony, we are people of comradeship with other brother nations. We don't want war, but all the people who are here, all the nations who are here, they don't have weapons, but they are armed with our national constitutions. We are willing to give our lives to our country.
Meanwhile, Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez has said that the United States is seriously provoking Venezuela under pretext of humanitarian aid. Rodriguez took to Twitter to express his discontent after the U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton said that Washington is sending humanitarian aid to Venezuela. Bolton also said in response to the calls by Venezuela's opposition leader to, quote, rescue Venezuelan people. And this weekend, the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, gave an exclusive interview to the Spanish journalist Jordi Évole of Salvado's program. When asked on the defense of the country, the president explained that the people began to prepare in a professional, institutional, and constitutional in the event of any conflict.
He said we are threatened by the world's greatest powers. The military option is on the table of Donald Trump, and that shall make countries surrender. A country has to be prepared if it wants peace. As Adagio says, prepare for the war. But as I said, if you want peace, prepare to defend it. We are preparing to defend the peace.
And regarding an alleged mediatic manipulation by his enemies and other countries, the president clarified that Venezuela is overexposed by an international campaign.
We are the victims of where the United States has declared us to be the #1 enemy, to destroy the progressive current of the world. As before communism, there is no longer old communism, but the new Cold War that these are decreed from the Washington has the enemy to overcome Venezuela, the Bolivarian Revolution.
Maduro also explained that in the coming days he will announce new evidence regarding the frustrated assassination plan against his person committed on August 4th last year.
The attack was authorized by the White House. The authors, the attack with the drones on August 4, the financiers and the planners live in the United States and are protected. We have requested their extradition, its capture and the extradition to the U.S. government. The attack went directly from Bogota with all the logistical support of the former President Juan Manuel Santos and the direct person who organized the attack, the ex-deputy leader of the Venezuelan opposition, Julio Borges, are convinced that the confessed their material authors are evidence of testimony and have emerged new evidence to acknowledge in the next hours of how the attack was directed to eliminate my personality.
And regarding the attacks against Venezuela, the English rock musician Roger Waters, one of the founders of the band Pink Floyd, made a tweet this Sunday expressing his support to the Venezuelan's democracy and concern about the interventionist policies of the United States government against the Bolivarian country. A note from Roger: this is today. Stop this latest insanity. Leave the Venezuelan people alone. They have a real democracy. Stop trying to destroy it so the 1% can plunder their oil. Hands off. and the Canadian government denied Telesur press access to cover the so-called Lima Group meeting on Monday in Ottawa, Canada, to discuss Venezuela's affairs. In response, Telesur's president Patricia Villegas tweeted, "Those who speak of freedom demonstrate through every action how much they don't understand its meaning." Telesur has assured that it will not give up its mission to inform. The summit is in support of the Venezuelan opposition. Time for a first break here from the South. Make sure you follow us on social media. On Twitter, you find us as Telesur English and at Laura P. Telesur. Stay with us. And we are back. Ancient tombs and artifacts have been found in the northeast of Peru. 3 chambers with pottery and copper ornaments belonging to the ancient Mochica civilization, well known for the quality of their ceramics. The site dates back to the Middle Moche period, around 600 years after Christ.
We are facing the discovery of 3 tombs of the Mochica culture in its middle stage. These are burial chambers that contain skeletal remains surrounded by ornaments and wrapped in their attire of rank and command.
And thousands of indigenous people from the Purepecha community in Mexico have celebrated their new year. The celebration is an ancestral ceremony marking the arrival of the agricultural new year. During this event, a fire is burned to ask for a wealth of crops and healthy life. Purepecha people created an empire in the 16th century and currently live mainly in Michoacán state.
This celebration of New Fire has, for indigenous peoples, a profound significance in the rescue of cultures and identity.
So our grandfather fire, we ask at the new year for the possibility to continue fulfilling more life, fulfilling the tasks we have in the community, in the family, in relationships, and also with oneself as a person, as a member of the Purepecha.
And we continue in Mexico, where thousands of women have protested in the country against violence on public transport. With banners reading, "They are killing us" and "Stop kidnappings and feminicides," women marched in Mexico City. They demanded special security from public transport to stop feminicides, attempted abductions and violence against women. Reports of attempts to kidnap women on the subway have risen over recent weeks, making the safety of women on transport a topic for public debate.
This kidnapping is not new. Now that victims begin to give testimony and have begun to mobilize on the issue, but outside the subway and on the streets, as well as outside the capital, it also happens.
I think that from the age of just 5, things start to happen to you. They have touched me everywhere, on the street, on the subway, on the bus, at school, all without consent.
And the death toll of the tornado that hit Cuba last week have risen to 6. 2 more people passed away as consequence of injuries caused by the tornado that hit Havana a week ago. The member of the Council of State and a former Minister of Health said that the victims, the 2 more people that passed away as consequence of the tornado, are part of a group of 13 people who were in critical condition. Almost 200 people were wounded as a result of that tornado. Time for a second break. Stay with us. And we are back. This Sunday, the United Arab Emirates Pope Francis became the first pontiff to visit the Arabian Peninsula and to meet with religious leaders of Islam and seek the reapproachment between both beliefs. In his diary, Pope Francis will meet with Muslim leaders and celebrate an open-air mass for about 120,000 Catholics. He said that the trip, which will end next Tuesday, is an opportunity to write a new page in the history of relations between religions. And at least 7 people have been killed and 24 injured after several train coaches derailed in the northern India state of Bihar. The Simhanchal Express train was on its way to Delhi at full speed when 11 carriages derailed and went off the tracks at around 4 a.m. local time. Rescue workers continue working in the area. The cause of the accident is yet to be known. And at least 3 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank by Israeli forces. They have also demolished 20 Palestinian properties. Our correspondent in the Middle East, Nayara Tardo, has the details.
The United Nations has reported that Israeli forces have killed 3 Palestinians and demolished 20 Palestinian-owned properties in the West Bank. The 3 Palestinians were killed in separate incidents in December 2018, at least 11 Palestinians have been killed. The houses were demolished because, according to Israeli authorities, they had no license. The attacks in the occupied areas against Palestinians continue, even against their crops.
And Russia has suspended a Cold War-era missile treaty a day after the United States pulled out. On Friday, the U.S. formally announced it was suspending its obligations under the agreement after accusing Russia of violating the treaty. The INF Treaty was signed in 1987 by the U.S. and the then Soviet Union to ban the use of short and medium-range missiles by both countries.
We will provide a mirror-like response. The American partners have declared that they suspend their participation in the deal. We're suspending it as well. They have announced that they will engage in research and development programs. We will do the same. We have repeatedly, over a number of years, raised a question about substantive talks on the disarmament issue. Notably, on all aspects we see, that is, the past few years the partners have not supported our initiatives.
And Russia has responded to United States' announcement of withdrawal from the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. Hansel Oro tells us more details from Moscow.
The United States' announcement of the country's exit from the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty means a big fracture in the control of arms of an international level. A meeting held with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, the Minister for Defense Sergei Shoigu, and President Vladimir Putin implies that the country won't allow another armed race with the United States. Putin and the defense ministers have been working on a strategy above all readjust the budget for 2019 and its subsequent years, not to amend it, rather to make adjustments to meet its objectives and respond in an equivalent way in the wake of the United States' announcement of its withdrawal from the INF Treaty. The treaty was signed in 1987 with no expiry date, but the Donald Trump administration has been pushing it in the last 70 days, offering an ultimatum to Russia and accusing the country of having violated the agreement. Russia has said it's leaving the door open for future negotiations with the US, but the Minister of Defense and the Foreign Minister made proposals for new initiatives to the United States which were rejected. There are fears that the US will be looking for produce short to medium range missiles and incorporate nuclear capabilities, which is concerning for the Kremlin. Doing so could, without doubt, be managing to the international community and international peace. President Vladimir Putin is continuing to call on the United States to rethink its position on having withdrawn from the agreement with the 6 months left before the exit is final.
And now we go to China, where cities across the country have been adorned with lights and lanterns to welcome the Chinese Lunar New Year on this February 5th. It's the year of the pig, so depictions of pigs at home and abroad are on display. A lantern show will take place until February 20th at the Chengchuan Scenic Park. The festivities are enjoyed by families and tourists. Like this, we've come to the end of this youth brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net, where you can find opinion articles and, of course, Telesur's specials interviews. Stay with Telesur, connecting the global south. Until next time, thank you for watching.